Today, I bring you a narrative that will challenge everything you've ever heard about God and spirituality. In this video, we will explore the incredibly moving experience of Paul Sanchez, who, after surviving a near-fatal accident, discovered a truth about God that religion never revealed. Prepare yourself for a journey filled with profound and surprising revelations. If you enjoy stories that make you reflect and see the world in a completely new way, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any content. Now let's uncover the story of Paul and what he discovered about the true divine essence. Hello, my name is Paul Sanchez. Until a few months ago, I was just another business consultant in Houston, Texas. I was born and raised in San Juan, Puerto Rico, but moved to the United States in search of a promising career. My father, James Hunter, was always an example of strength and determination to me, and I wanted to honor his memory by achieving success. Life in Houston was a constant rush, meetings, targets, clients to please. I lived at high speed, so focused on reaching the top that I unknowingly drifted away from the things that truly mattered. My spirituality and my family took a back seat. I grew up in a very religious household. My father was a deeply devout man with an unwavering belief in a just but punishing God. This view of a God always ready to condemn any slip-up shaped my childhood and over time distanced me from my faith. I could never reconcile this harsh image with the idea of a loving and compassionate God. As the years went by, my faith became a distant memory, buried under layers of pragmatism and rationality. I became skeptical, focused only on the material world and the results I could see and measure. But all of that changed in an instant, a moment that began like any other, but ended with the greatest twist of my life. Today, I want to share with you the story of how a near-fatal accident, and how during that brief encounter with the other side, I learned truths about God, life, and spirituality that transformed my life forever. I'm not the type to get lost in circles. I will recount exactly how it all happened in the most honest and straightforward way I can. It may seem unbelievable at times, but I ask you to listen with an open mind. What I experienced that day completely reshaped my understanding of life and death, and I hope my story can somehow impact you. It was an ordinary morning in Houston, with the sun shining in a clear blue sky and the typical Texas heat starting to settle in, even though the day had just begun. I had just exited an important meeting and decided to take a walk to my favorite cafe for a quick break before my next appointment. As I walked along the busy sidewalk, my phone rang. It was an important client, one I couldn't ignore. I answered immediately and dove into the conversation, nearly forgetting the world around me. It was in that moment of distraction that everything happened. Suddenly, I heard a deafening crash above me, as if a heavy object was falling. Instinctively, I looked up, and at the last moment, I saw a huge wooden plank coming down towards me. The time was so short that I couldn't react. It all happened so fast that my brain barely had the capacity to process the situation. The impact struck me directly on the head. The pain, oh my God, the pain was unbearable, as if a bolt of lightning had shot through my skull. I felt my vision darken and my legs give way. I fell to the hard pavement, my phone slipping from my hands and shattering a few meters ahead. People around me started to scream and panic. I heard distant voices calling for an ambulance and others asking if I was okay, but I could barely hear them. The world around me seemed to unravel, as if I were sinking into a dark, deep sea. As I struggled to remain conscious, something unusual began to happen. An intense blue light started to invade my peripheral vision. It was something I had never witnessed before, a different kind of light that didn't cause discomfort to my eyes. On the contrary, it emitted a comforting feeling that brought with it a peace in sharp contrast to the intense pain I was feeling. It was in that moment that I realized something far beyond my understanding was unfolding. The blue light grew stronger, filling my entire field of vision. The pain began to dissipate, as if it was being washed away by that enigmatic light. I remember thinking, this is it. This is how it all ends. But I felt no fear. Surprisingly, I was calm, almost curious, as if I were on the brink of an extraordinary journey. And then, everything went dark. The darkness that enveloped me didn't last long. Soon, the blue light I had seen earlier returned, even more intense than before, as if it were filling every cell of my body, wrapping me completely. The pain I had felt moments ago had vanished, replaced by a sense of warmth and comfort I had never experienced before. As the light intensified, I began to feel a strange sensation, as if my body were dissolving. It wasn't frightening. On the contrary, it felt like I was shedding a burden I hadn't even realized I was carrying. I felt light, almost ethereal. Suddenly, I realized I was floating, as if an invisible and benevolent force were lifting me up. There was no fear, no panic, just a deep peace and a curiosity about what was to come. It was then that I heard a voice, soft as a whisper, yet clear and reassuring at the same time. "It's all right," the voice said. "I will take you to a safe place." There was something in that voice, a kindness and understanding that made me trust it instantly. All the anxiety and fear I might have felt began to dissolve. As I floated in that invisible space, I started to see the world in a completely new way. From where I was, everything seemed distant, almost like a satire. It was as if I were gazing at a meticulously crafted model. The people, the vehicles, the buildings, everything appeared so small and insignificant from that perspective. As I ascended higher and higher, the city transformed into just a glowing point in the vastness of a new dimension unfolding before me. Time and space, as I knew them, seemed to have lost their significance. It was as if I were entering a realm where the laws of physics ceased to exist. The sensation was indescribable. I felt completely free, oblivious to all the worries and fears I had carried in my earthly life. For the first time in a long while, I was experiencing genuine peace. As I continued on this surreal journey, I began to realize I was being led to a specific destination. I had no idea what awaited me, but deep down, I sensed it was something extraordinary, something that would revolutionize everything I thought I knew about life, death, and the universe. As the city of HST completely vanished from my view, I found myself crossing a dimension beyond human understanding. A place of indescribable beauty, so vast and majestic that it took my breath away, even though I wasn't actually breathing at that moment. Around me, planets and stars twinkled with an unprecedented intensity. Their beauty was unlike anything I had ever experienced on Earth. Blues deeper than the clearest seas, reds more vibrant than the most dramatic sunsets, and shades I never knew existed. Each star and planet seemed to pulse with its own unique life. The most striking aspect was the profound serenity that permeated everything. It felt as if love and harmony were the primal forces governing that place. There was no fear or anxiety, only an overwhelming sense of belonging and acceptance. Suddenly, before me, a staircase appeared, but it wasn't an ordinary staircase. It seemed to be made of a substance that was both solid and ethereal, the steps softly glowing, as if crafted from pure light. Each step felt like an invitation to continue, promising even greater revelations. I began to ascend the staircase, and with each movement I felt lighter, as if each step was purifying me, stripping away layers of anxieties and fears I hadn't even realized I carried. A fresh floral scent filled the air, faintly reminding me of the gardens of my childhood in Puerto Rico, but 1,000 times more intense and comforting. Upon reaching the top of the staircase, I confronted a white stone bridge. The stone appeared almost translucent, radiating a gentle and welcoming light. As I crossed the bridge, I discovered it led to a vast garden, like a celestial paradise. The garden was unlike anything I had ever seen. The trees displayed a vibrant green that seemed to touch the sky, and flowers of various hues and shapes adorned the pathway. A crystal-clear river flowed alongside the bridge, its water sparkling with an inner light, emitting a soft and comforting melody. As I walked, I was enveloped by a sense of well-being and fulfillment I had never experienced before. Script text. Every step brought me closer to something magnificent, something beyond my understanding, yet on the verge of being revealed. And it was then, in the heart of this celestial garden, that I spotted a man with remarkable simplicity, radiating a light so intense that it was almost impossible to look at him. He wore a white robe that seemed woven from pure light, and his face, though human, displayed a serenity and love I had never seen before. Just the sight of him filled me with a deep peace, as if all the worries of the world had dissipated in that moment. He approached me with a warm smile and greeted me in a way that made me feel incredibly important. There was something in his gaze, an infinite wisdom and a kindness that seemed to embrace my soul. I didn't know who he was, but deep down, I knew he was someone very special, destined to show me something essential. "I'm so proud of you." These words struck me deeply. How many times had I wished to hear them? How many nights did I spend wondering if I was honoring his memory and living up to his expectations? "Father," my voice began to falter with emotion, "I miss you so much. I have so much to share, so many questions." He smiled and placed his hand on my shoulder. "I know, son, I know everything, and I want you to understand that I have always been by your side, even when you couldn't see or feel me." His presence drew closer, and his gentle smile enveloped me in a peace I had never known before. "My dear, you have grown. We are all so proud of you." I looked around at the smiling faces surrounding me. It felt like a family reunion, but much deeper and more meaningful than any I had ever experienced on earth. There was no judgment, resentment, or past wounds, only pure and unconditional love. However, my father had a serious expression as he began again. "Raul, my son, you need to understand that it is not yet your time to stay here with us." A tightening formed in my chest. How could it not be my time? I was so happy here, so at peace. How could I return? "You still have a mission to fulfill on earth," my father continued. "There are people who need you and important tasks to be carried out." I looked at the faces around me, all nodding in agreement. My grandmother came close again, her gentle touch on my arm bringing comfort. "Don't worry, dear," she said. "We will always be here waiting for you, but right now you need to return and live the life that has been given to you." I wanted to protest. I wanted to stay there with them, in that place of love and peace, but something inside me realized that they were right. There was something unfinished, something I needed to accomplish. "Remember, son," my father spoke, his eyes shining with wisdom. "The love we have for you knows no bounds of time or space. We will always be by your side, guiding your steps." With one last collective embrace, I realized it was time to go, but before I pulled away, my father held my hand once more. "There are more things you need to see and understand before returning," he said. "Be open, son. What you are about to experience will change your life forever." With my heart filled with love and my eyes brimming with tears, I distanced myself from them as their figures faded into the light. I felt a new presence approaching. It was something different, even more powerful and majestic than anything I had experienced up to that moment. As I moved away from my loved ones, I noticed a dance around me. The light, which was already intense, became even more vibrant, but it wasn't blinding or uncomfortable. It was as if every particle of my being was being bathed in pure, loving energy. Suddenly, I realized I was in the presence of something. There was no defined shape, no entity I could describe in human terms. It was more an overwhelming sensation of being in the presence of something or someone immeasurably great and powerful. In that moment, I understood, in a way that transcended any logic, that I was in front of God. But not the God I had imagined during my life, nor the severe and punitive God my father James Hunter taught me to fear. This presence emanated pure love, as if the very essence of the universe's love was concentrated in a single point, radiating endless acceptance, compassion, and understanding. There was no judgment, no condemnation, just a love so deep and unconditional that it brought me to my knees, or at least that was the feeling I had in that non-physical state. Tears streamed down my face as I realized how wrong I had been throughout my life. Every time I turned away from spirituality, every time I doubted or questioned the existence of a higher power. It was in that moment that I heard a voice. It wasn't a voice in the conventional sense, but it felt as if the very molecules of the air, if there was any air there at all, vibrated with a message that resonated directly in my soul. "My child," the voice said, and the love that emanated from those two words was more than I could bear. "You have traveled a long way with your eyes closed, but now it is time to see the truth." I wanted to ask countless questions, but I couldn't articulate the words. It wasn't necessary. The divine presence seemed to grasp every thought and emotion that passed through me. "What you have known on earth as God is just a shadow of what the truth is," the voice continued. "Humans, with their limited vision, have created a distorted image. I am not a strict judge nor a distant king on a throne. I am the love that permeates all of creation." These words reverberated within me with immense intensity, as if every cell in my being was being reconfigured to absorb this essential truth. "You need not fear," the voice went on. "There is no eternal punishment nor condemnation. There is only love, learning, and evolution. Each soul in its own time finds the way back home." I felt overwhelmed. My entire belief system, everything I thought I knew about God and spirituality, was being profoundly transformed. It was both terrifying and liberating at the same time. Then, I finally managed to consolidate a clear thought. Why is there so much suffering in the world? Why do bad things happen? If God is love? The answer did not come in words, but in an understanding that spread through me. I understood that suffering was not a form of punishment, but an opportunity for growth, a test of strength and wisdom, and a chance to turn pain into love and understanding. I stood there, immersed in this divine presence, absorbing truths that transcended my ability to express them in human words. I felt that I could stay there forever, learning and evolving in this endless love, until I gently realized that this presence was starting to fade away. There were more things I needed to see and understand before returning. As I distanced myself from the divine presence, still processing everything I had experienced, I noticed a new figure approaching. This one was different from the familiar ones I had encountered before, as well as from the imposing presence of God. This figure had a more defined, more human form. As it came closer, I was overwhelmed by a deep sense of recognition. It wasn't a visual recognition. After all, I had never seen this person before. It felt more like my soul instantly identified him. It was Jesus Christ. But he bore no resemblance to the images I was used to seeing in churches or religious books. There was no crown of thorns or elaborate garments. Instead, I saw a simple man dressed in modest clothing, yet radiating a light and love that were almost palpable. His eyes, my God, those eyes, were a deep brown, filled with a compassion and understanding that left me speechless. When he smiled at me, I felt as if the whole universe was smiling as well. "Raul," he said, his voice both gentle and powerful, "do not be afraid. I am here to help you understand." I wanted to kneel, to prostrate myself before him, but Jesus gently placed his hand on my shoulder, stopping me. "There's no need for that," he affirmed. "We are all on the same level here. We are all children of the same Father." He began to walk, and I instinctively followed him. As we walked, the scenery around us changed constantly. I saw majestic mountains, endless oceans, and lush forests, all pulsing with vitality and beauty beyond human understanding. "You saw the Father," Jesus said, referring to my earlier encounter with God. "Now you understand that he is not the vengeful and punitive being that many believe him to be." I still felt unable to form words. My message on earth had been altered throughout the centuries. He continued, explaining that he came to spread teachings on love, forgiveness, and compassion to demonstrate that the kingdom of heaven resides within each one of us. Yet, human limitation had turned these simple truths into complex doctrines and rigid rules. As he spoke, I visualized flashes of humanity's history, how the direct words of Jesus were interpreted and reinterpreted, how wars were fought in his name, and how fear was used as a tool to control the masses. Yet, I also saw that despite all of this, the love he spread still managed to touch and change lives. "Raul," Jesus said, stopping and fixing his gaze directly on mine, "you have a choice to make now." My heart skipped a beat. "A choice. You can stay here in this place of peace and love," he said, "or you can return to earth, taking with you what you have learned here." I fell silent for a brief moment, pondering his words. Staying there, in that space of eternal love and peace, was tempting, very tempting. But something inside me knew that it was not yet my time. Before making a decision, Jesus said, "Let me show you something." He extended his hand and touched my forehead, and suddenly, I was flooded with visions of the future. The images Jesus presented to me were so vivid and realistic that it felt as if I was truly living those moments. The first thing I noticed was my mother, Elizabeth Monroe. My heart ached as I saw her. She was sitting alone in a rocking chair, gazing out the window of our home in Puerto Rico. Her hair, once as black as night, was now completely white. Her hands, which I always remembered as active, were now trembling slightly in her lap. But what struck me the most were her eyes. Those eyes, which had always shone with joy, now looked dull, burdened with deep sadness. I watched as she spent her days alone in that house, too large for just one person. I saw her looking at the photos on the wall, those pictures of our family, of me as a child and of my father, and how silent tears slid down her wrinkled face. "Mother," I wanted to scream, but my voice wouldn't come in that vision. I wanted to hug her, tell her that everything was okay, that I loved her, but I couldn't. The scene changed, and now I saw my son, Michael Grant, my little one whom I left behind so often while chasing professional success. He was no longer a child. He was a young man facing challenges I never imagined. I watched Michael Grant struggling at school, being bullied by other boys, and I felt the pain in his eyes as he looked at the empty chair at the dinner table where I should have been. I saw him making tough decisions without a father to guide him, to advise him. One particular scene broke my heart. Michael Grant, now a teenager, was sitting in his room, staring at a picture of me. "Why did you have to go, Dad?" he murmured, his voice choked with emotion. "I need you." The visions continued, showing me other members of my family, friends, co-workers. I realized how my absence impacted each of them in different ways, and the lost opportunities for love, connection, and the chance to make a difference in people's lives. But these weren't just visions of sadness and loss. Jesus also illuminated moments of joy and triumph I could experience if I chose to return. I saw myself embracing my mother, her face radiant with happiness. I imagined teaching Michael Grant to drive, laughing together at his clumsy first attempts. I visualized making a difference in people's lives, using my experience and knowledge to help others. When the visions came to an end, I was emotionally exhausted. I looked at Jesus, whose features expressed compassion and understanding. "Now you understand," he said softly. "Your journey on earth is not over. There is much you can accomplish, many lives you can touch." I felt unable to speak. The realization of the impact my absence had caused and the good I could still do if I returned was overwhelming. "But remember," Jesus continued, "if you choose to return, it won't be easy. There will be obstacles, pains, and moments of uncertainty. You will carry the weight of the knowledge you gained here, aware that not everyone will understand or believe in your experience." I took a deep breath, or at least I felt like I did in that physical state. The decision was clear to me. I knew exactly what I needed to do. "I want to go back," I declared firmly, despite the emotion. "I need to return for my mother, for my son, for all those I can help." Jesus smiled, a smile filled with love and approval. "You made a brave choice, Raul, and keep in mind that no matter what happens, you will never be alone. We will always be by your side, guiding your steps." With those words, he placed his hand on my shoulder, and I felt a wave of strength and courage fill my being. I was ready to return and face whatever the future had in store for me. As soon as I made the decision to go back, I noticed an immediate change in the environment around me. The bright and welcoming light from beyond began to disperse, giving way to a darkness that felt not frightening, but rather comforting, like a blanket wrapping around my consciousness. Jesus smiled at me once more, his eyes filled with love and understanding. "Remember, Raul," he said, his voice echoing as his image started to fade, "the love you experienced here is always with you. Carry it in your heart and share it with the world." I felt like I was falling, but there was no fear. It was as if I were being gently guided back to my body, like a feather floating softly in the air. As I descended, I began to perceive physical sensations once again. First, a tingling in my fingertips and toes, then a pressure in my chest, as if someone were pushing gently and rhythmically. Sounds began to filter through the darkness. Muffled voices, beeping machines, the distinct noise of a hospital. Suddenly, a sharp pain in my head reminded me of the accident that had led me to this journey. The doctors were surprised by the speed of my recovery. What should have been an extensive hospitalization turned into just a few weeks. They couldn't explain how the injury to my head, which initially seemed so severe, was healing in an almost miraculous way. However, I knew I was not alone on this healing journey. I constantly felt the loving presence I had experienced on the other side, providing me strength and helping me overcome every challenge. As I gained strength, I began to deeply reflect on everything I had lived through. Every morning I woke up was a gift, a new chance to live with gratitude and purpose. The worries that once consumed me, like professional success, social status, and the accumulation of material possessions, now seemed so irrelevant. I understood that the love and support of my family are truly irreplaceable. My mother, Elizabeth Monroe, came from Puerto Rico as soon as she heard about the accident. Having her by my side, caring for me with such love, made me realize how much I had neglected our relationship in recent years. I promised myself that this would change. My son Michael Grant was also there the whole time. Seeing the fear and relief in his eyes made me understand how much he needed me, not just as a provider, but also as a father, friend, and guide. I vowed to be more present in his life, to listen to him, and to guide him with all the love I had rediscovered in myself. My experience also completely transformed my view of God and spirituality. The God I came to know was not that distant and punitive being they had taught me to fear, but rather an infinite source of love and acceptance. This new understanding brought me a peace that I had never experienced before. I began to reconnect with my spirituality, but in a different way, not through empty rituals or rigid dogmas, but through a direct connection with the divine. Meditation, prayer, and acts of kindness became essential parts of my daily life. The doctors were surprised at the speed of my recovery. What should have been a long hospitalization turned into just a few weeks. They couldn't explain how the head injury, which initially seemed so serious, was healing in an almost miraculous way. However, I already knew I was not alone on this journey of recovery. I constantly felt the loving presence I had experienced on the other side, providing me strength and helping me overcome each challenge. As I regained my strength, I began to reflect deeply on everything I had experienced. Each morning I awoke was a gift, a new chance to live with gratitude and purpose. The anxieties that once consumed me, professional success, social status, and the accumulation of material possessions, now seemed so trivial. I understood that the love and support of family are truly irreplaceable. My mother, Elizabeth Monroe, came from Puerto Rico as soon as she heard about the accident. Her presence by my side, caring for me with such love, made me realize how much I had neglected our relationship in the past years. I promised myself that this would change. My son Mig has been by my side throughout this time. Seeing the fear and relief in his eyes made me realize how much he needed me, not just as a provider, but as a father, friend, and mentor. I vowed to be more present in his life, to listen to him, and to guide him with all the love I had rediscovered within myself. My experience completely transformed my perception of God and spirituality. The God I came to know was not the distant and punishing figure I was taught to fear, but rather an infinite source of love and acceptance. This new perspective brought me a peace I had never felt before. I began to reconnect with my spirituality, but in a different way, not through empty rituals or rigid dogmas, but through a direct connection with the divine. Meditation, prayer, and acts of kindness became essential parts of my daily life. As I shared my experiences with friends and family, I realized that not everyone could understand or believe what I had been through. Some saw it all as a result of trauma, while others thought I was confused because of the medications. However, this did not disturb me, as I knew the truth within me, and that was what mattered most. I decided to seize my second chance to positively impact people's lives. I began volunteering at a local hospital, bringing comfort and hope to terminally ill patients, sharing with them the lessons I had learned about life after death and the unconditional love waiting for us on the other side. Additionally, I transformed my professional approach. Instead of seeking only profit and personal success, I looked for ways to use my knowledge and skills for the benefit of the community. I launched social responsibility projects within the company, encouraging my colleagues to engage in meaningful causes. Every challenge I encounter now comes with the certainty that I am not alone. I know that a greater force guides and protects me. No matter what the future holds, the love I experienced on this journey beyond this world will always be with me, guiding me along the right path. My near-death experience was not just a turning point in my life, but a revelation that love and acceptance are the true foundations of existence. Today, I perceive the world from a new perspective, cherishing every moment, every connection, and every act of kindness. It is this message of unconditional love that I wish to share with everyone I meet. This is my story, a narrative of death and rebirth, of fear transformed into love, of uncertainty turned into faith. My hope is that, in some way, it can touch your heart and inspire you to live each day with more love, gratitude, and purpose. May you also find the courage to face life's challenges with the certainty that you are never alone and that love is the force that sustains us even in the hardest times.